on this Monday. Eagles come off the big victory at Lincoln Financial Field where they took down DeSean Jackson and the Washington Redskins by a score of 37-34. Now joining us on the hotline is a man that covers the Philadelphia Eagles for the Philadelphia Inquirer, and that is our good buddy, Zach Berman. Zach, it's Zach and Chase here in Philly. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on your show, guys.
Well, thank you for coming on, and we always appreciate when we get to talk some football with you. Yesterday, Nick Foles, he was tough as nails, 27 of 41, 325 yards, but 3 touchdowns on the board and to no interceptions. He was losing some of his offensive linemen and took some big hits, but I thought this was one of Foles' best game in his short career here in Philadelphia. He was really tough yesterday.
Oh, certainly. It was. If I wrote down the 3, 4, 5 best games Foles played, I covered every one of them. This is up there on the list and pretty high up there on the list. And I'll tell you what, that throw that he had at the end of the first half, touchdown pass to Jordan Matthews, that's as good a throw as he had in an Eagles uniform.
And he got a lot of players involved, as Matthews, like you mentioned, also had Jeremy Maclin, and LaShawn McCoy wasn't even 100% yesterday, as he only had 22 yards on the ground. And I also like to see the intensity from this offense. Once Chris Baker developed a nasty hit, and you saw Jason Peters respond, and then you also had, on the other end of the ball, DeSean Jackson get into it early and then high step his way into the end zone. It looks like we already know there was some juice to this Redskins-Eagles rivalry, but it looks like it's going to escalate to the next level looking at the game the other day.
Oh, certainly, and obviously DeSean Jackson, that's the thing that really spiced it up. His exit here, he was unceremoniously released. And in terms of Jason Peters, you respect the fact that he had Nick Foles' back, that he stood up for his teammates, but obviously you don't want to lose your left tackle in a tie game quarter. So that one hurt them as well. Especially they were already down Jason Kelsey, they're down Evan Mathis, down Alan Barber, down Lane Johnson. By the end of the game, they only had one original starting offensive lineman, and it was Todd Herman, and he wasn't even playing his original spot. He was playing right tackle. So that goes to A, how impressive the game Foles had, considering it was a mismatched offensive line, and then 2, although it's admirable what Jason Peters did, you don't want to be ejected from a game like that.
We're spending a few minutes with Zach Berman of the Philadelphia Inquirer. Zach, it's Chase. Thanks for joining the show. A big story coming out of this game was Kerry Williams' comments post-game in the locker room when he mentioned that he's broken down, he's got no legs, and he's not the only one that feels that way on the defensive side of the ball. This coming because of Chip Kelly's intense practice schedule, and they did practice on the Tuesday following the Monday night victory against the Colts. What do you take away from this? Because as we know, Kerry Williams has always been an outspoken guy. He's always been verbal. He provides a juicy quote. But are other players on the defensive side of the rock feeling as though they're broken down because of this intense practice schedule?
Good question. It's one I'm going to explore in depth this week. I hear what Kerry Williams is saying. I can't speak, for his body. Obviously, he's the only one who can say how he feels. The reality is they're outscoring opponents 74-24 in the second half of the game this season. If they had no legs, they wouldn't be wearing teams out the way they are. So I'm a little skeptical of what Kerry said. Now, where Kerry Williams does have validity, he's a veteran. He knows how to get ready for the game. And I think for a lot of guys who've been in the NFL elsewhere or in different systems, what Chip Kelly does is it's a shock. It is a pretty dramatic from what's done elsewhere. Not just in terms of the intensity of the practice, but simply the amount of practice they have. The Eagles practice on Tuesdays. That's usually a day off in the NFL. The Eagles have their day off on Sundays, which is when teams usually come in and watch film but don't practice. But by virtue of that, they have one extra day of practice per week. And then also, they're off on Fridays and not Saturdays. They have a full practice on Saturday, the day before the game. It's certainly unconventional, but it's the approach Chip Kelly has brought. And when you look at that enhanced scoring differential, as I said, there's probably to it.
Jason Jason Kelce goes down yesterday, and he might be the one player that this team can't afford to lose. And on that play where he's flagged for a block in the back on that Macklin would have been touchdown, it was ridiculous to see him run down the field and run stride for stride with defensive backs. Are you hearing anything as to what his status is? Because that's in the area of a sports hernia. I mean, that's just speculating, but he would be a huge loss to this team.
He would be a huge loss for the team. It's something that's going to develop throughout the week. I don't want to diagnose him here, but what you're thinking is you hope for the Eagles it's not an abdominal tear. You hope it's more of a strain. We'll see. I don't have anything definitive that I could report. When I do, it'll be in the Philadelphia Inquirer. I hope all your listeners check that out. But no, as the moment, there's nothing definitive. After the game, Jason Kelce said we'll see. He was doing some stretches in the locker room. We'll see how it goes throughout the week.
We're talking to Zach Berman of the Philadelphia Inquirer. Does a great job covering the Eagles. And Zach, yesterday on offense, two players besides Nick Foles that really stood out to me was Jordan Matthews and Jeremy Macklin. What did you see Matthews and Macklin do differently from the first two games of the season? Because they both had breakout games yesterday.
Well, Macklin, I thought he played well in the first two games. When you watch the film, he was open all the time. In those first two games. I think that was just a matter of Foles and Macklin getting connected there. He's a really good wide receiver. I've thought that since I started covering this team a few years ago. I'm impressed with Macklin. I'm not surprised by what he's doing. In terms of Jordan Matthews, he dropped back this week, and the Eagles need him to be what he was yesterday. And so that was a major development in terms of actually catching the ball. He has a lot of talent. He has a good head on his shoulders. He works hard. He has a good body. There's a lot of things to like about him, but you saw it in the preseason. He had a real bad first game, comes back the second game and has a huge game. So it's just a matter of being.
Zach, let me ask you this. This Eagles offense, they put up 30-plus points in the first three games of the season. And you talked about the defense a little bit earlier as there's concerns on some defensive side of the ball as Kirk Cousins put up 427 yesterday. Pierre Garçon put up 138, and Deshaun Jackson had 117. Can the Eagles, they're 3-0. They have the 3 wins been pretty? No, but you're still 3-0, and you're up there as one of the best teams in the NFC. Can they continue to get by with putting up 30-plus points and not really having the best of efforts on the defensive side of the ball?
Yes, Zach. I think that's the way this team is built. They're a team that they're not going to win a lot of 21-14 games. I just don't think that's in their makeup. They're a team that there's going to be a lot of plays. There's going to be a lot of points, and you're going to see games in the 30s. So I would anticipate this being a consistent thing throughout the year. Not every week, but this is, as I said, this is not a team that's built to kind of run the ball or run the clock out and win on their defense. They're gonna be an electric offense within 4 points.
Zach, I know Billy Davis likes his big physical corners, as Kerry Williams and Bradley Fletcher are both kind of big size-wise, but is there any chance that they can wrinkle in Brandon Boykin more? I mean, every time he's on the field, he makes a huge play. He made a couple of big ones yesterday, and Fletcher and Carey were just getting beat time and time again. It seems like Boykin is their best defensive back, yet because of his size, Billy Davis doesn't like to put him on the field unless it's, a 4-wide receiver set.
I'm with you there. I mean, they play him in the nickel, so in 3 receiver sets, that's when Brandon Boykin comes into the game. I think he's playing much more than that. They say the cornerback position is different than the outside cornerback position. What makes Boykin excel, in Eagles' opinion, is playing that slot. I would look at him on the outside. That's me. I said that last year. He was playing 50% of the snaps last year, about 30-40% of the snaps this year. That's not enough. So they've been reluctant to do that so far. I would anticipate they'll stay reluctant to do that, but if I were a defensive coach, I'm not. If I were a defensive coach, I'd have Brandon Boykin out there more often.
Yeah, because it's not like Lito Shepherd and Asante Samuel were the biggest of guys outside. Moving back to the offensive side of the ball, McCoy finishes with 19 carries for 22 yards yesterday. He hasn't really put up the numbers that we expected in the first 3 games, but a lot of that is due to the offensive line problems. He takes the big hit yesterday, goes into the locker room, gets checked out for concussion-like symptoms. Has he looked right to you at all?
Has he looked right? I mean, he hasn't looked not right. He just hasn't been productive enough, and he's the first one to tell you that. I think defenses are keying in on him. That's a part of it, but a lot of it needs to be, McCoy getting those yards, and it's not going right now. You could say that it's what the defense is doing. I think the defense was doing it last year too. The big difference last year and this year is the offensive line. Take away Epnet, take away Lane Thompson, take away. I mean, yesterday obviously Jason Kelsey, Dick Peters, but I really think we need that offensive line. The difference is 2012 and 2013. Look at the numbers in 12. Look at the numbers in 13. He needs a healthy offensive line.
Wrapping up here with Zach Berman from the Philadelphia Inquirer. Zach, next week San Francisco, they're going to travel out there. San Francisco's 1-2 on the year. They've been a bit of a disappointment. What's one thing that you want to see the Eagles really do, though, going up against the 49ers that could concern you a little bit?
I would say protect the quarterback in terms of, it's not just sack, because it's easy to say Nick Foles wasn't sacked, but he took a lot of big hits. So getting Foles time, and then, as I said, running the ball. The Eagles need to be able to run the ball more effectively. Those are bread and butter legs. So I'm really curious to see that offensive line throughout the week and going into Sunday's game.
Zach, we appreciate the time. You're great as always. Just do me a favor. Next time you talk to Carey Williams, can you tell him to shut his mouth, please? Because it's really starting to get ridiculous with how much he talks.
I like talking to Carey as a reporter. I find
of course
Carey
you do.
Exciting, interesting, and I think he doesn't stop talking.
All right. Well, Zach, we appreciate the time today. Thanks so much, and we'll talk to you again as the season progresses.
Thanks, guys. Keep up the good work.
Thanks, Zach.
There's Zach Berman from the Philadelphia Inquirer. Number in the studio is 215-204-WHIP. Zach